Prime Cabinet Secretary, the two speakers of Senate and National Assembly, Mr. AG, chairman of our commissions and heads of independent offices, commissioners present, CEOs, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Hamjambo. Happy New Year. First, let me take this opportunity to apologize. This function started late because of a small conflict in my diary. I was engaged in another meeting with the Ministry of Health because health is a very important component of our bottom-up economic transformation agenda, commonly known as the plan. And as you're all aware, we have made 2 attempts already on universal health coverage, and both of them have failed. And I don't want a 3rd attempt to fail. So you remember Charity Ngilu and Professor Anyang' Nyong'o tried it in the coalition government. There was another attempt by our Jubilee administration, and both attempts flopped. This time round, we must get it right, and that is why I am personally engaged in making sure that that program succeeds. I did make a commitment to the people of Kenya that I would assign my deputy responsibilities, because the history we have is different. And one of the major responsibilities that has assigned my good deputy is to act as the liaison and to provide a framework for the executive to work with and support and make interventions on behalf of our independent offices and commissions. This was premised on my belief that the work of independent offices and independent commissions is critical to the delivery of government programs and to the success of our country. It's also premised on my belief in the independence of these commissions, and that their work must not go to waste and must count in the delivery of our government program. You've heard from the Deputy President that my instructions were very clear. We have no intention whatsoever to managing the commissions or interfering in the work of the commissions. Our liaison and our collaboration and working together is to make it much more efficient for you to engage in government, that we support the work you do. And you have said yourselves that you've had challenges with the implementation of the recommendations that you always make. The Office of the Deputy President will now make it easier and possible for us to implement all the recommendations that you make to all the institutions in the executive. We have recommendations that come from the Auditor General. We have recommendations that come from SRC. We have recommendations that come from every independent office. It is my commitment that we want those recommendations implemented, and that is why we are working together. I also know that many independent offices and independent commissions have challenges with matters budget. That is why, again, I assigned the High Office of Deputy President to assist the commissions to negotiate their way and to appreciate the nature of the budgets that you need, because you have said in this meeting that sometimes when we sectorize our budget, you get lost in between, and sometimes you are forced to compete for resources with the very people that you oversight. And therefore, it is in their interest to make sure that you don't get as much resources so that you don't give them trouble. So, so the Deputy President's office will help you navigate and moderate those kind of things so that you get your due place in the budget making process, and we can be able to appreciate the kind of resources that you require to make the independent offices and independent commissions functional, effective, and efficient. Matters to do with logistics, human resource, and the whole of that space that you require, you will also have an opportunity to discuss with us through the Office of the Deputy President, so that, again, we can give you the latitude to hire the people you need, and also to ensure that we look at the whole of government approach in dealing with independent offices and commissions. And finally, our approach is also to ensure that legislation that we prosecute as an administration through Parliament does not interfere with the independence of the commissions and does not claw back from some of the responsibilities that are assigned to you, because from where I sit as Deputy President before, I realized that that was one of the challenges that we had when dealing with independent offices and commissions. So that is the context that we are having this, this engagement. It is the same context that we have an engagement with the judiciary. Our belief is that an efficient, effective, independent judiciary serves the country better and holds all the other institutions of government to account, which then works for the people of Kenya. Our commitment to work with the judiciary is based on the executive supporting the judiciary in all manner of ways and eliminating unnecessary friction so that the judiciary can be effective in delivery of justice to the people of Kenya, and the judiciary can also stand up to impunity, whether it is by the executive or by the legislature, so that we can serve the country better. We're also committed to supporting our legislature. I have had consultations with the speakers so that they can also better discharge their oversight responsibility, provide a platform for the people of Kenya and their representatives to make their case, and to pass legislation that ensures that this country moves forward. And we are shortly working with the National Assembly and Senate to facilitate the executive to be better held to account by appearing on the floor of the House to answer questions, to explain policy, to attend to the needs of the people's representative in Parliament without necessarily compromising the independence of the executive or mixing the executive with the legislature. It is born out of our belief that accountability is what will cause us to deliver to the people of Kenya. So it is in that context that I believe that we need to have a working formula and metrics and arrangement between all arms of government, including our independent commissions and independent offices. And therefore, I welcome all of you to this very highly important gathering. Thank you for making time to be here. I appreciate the goodwill that you have shown, and I do not take it for granted that we can sit together as different arms of government and independent institutions to think about how we can deliver better for the people of Kenya. We have all come here to participate in a long overdue meeting. I know you've had consultations with my deputy in different situations, but I was also looking forward for us to having this meeting so that we can inaugurate a new paradigm in our collective deliberation, consultation, and aim at working to unlock the full potential and promise of our constitutional dispensation. This way, we afford ourselves the opportunity to do much more to guarantee greater freedom, entrench a culture of human rights, deepen democracy, and establish a new standard for the rule of law, transparency, and accountability in our country. The Constitution has mandated us to perform different but no less special tasks to promote a sound environment for the attainment of the greater well-being and the flourishing of our full human potential of each and every one of our people. In the dozen years that we have passed since the promulgation of the new Constitution, there can be no doubt about the profound potential of this majestic charter to transform Kenya into a modern, progressive democracy enjoying shared prosperity. The Constitution focuses on the freedom, capability, and well-being of citizens to promote strong, healthy families which make up robust, industrious communities. In turn, communities constitute a diverse, cohesive, stable, peaceful, and a prosperous nation that we all share in leading. The Constitution recognizes the promotion and actualization of the rights and freedoms and fundamental freedoms set out in the Bill of Rights as the demonstration as well as intent of its institutional dispensation. The Constitution severely restricts the range of conditions under which these rights and freedoms may be limited and forecloses any possibility of the state avoiding its obligation to observe, respect, protect, promote, and fulfill these rights and fundamental freedoms. All the functions performed by the state in the name of the people affect their experience of at least one right and or fundamental freedom. It is thus possible to categorize state functions in terms of the rights and freedoms directly affected by them. The organs of government, together with their constituent mandates and functions, as well as commissions and independent offices, are explicitly and implicitly directed towards the observance and fulfillment of certain constitutional obligations connected with corresponding rights and freedoms. The national values and principles of governance set out in Article 10 are both the means as well as the ends of the actualization of the constitutional dispensation and implementation of rights and freedoms. We have classified our ministries, departments, and agencies into thematic clusters for effective coordination of delivery and for better evaluation of performance. The thematic clusters are based on the pillars of our bottom-up economic transformation agenda, commonly known as the plan, for the rapid socio-economic transformation of our country to achieve shared prosperity from the bottom going up. A number of functions can be seen to be cross-cutting and may be understood to be principally enablers. In any event, the pillars of our transformational agenda converge with the economic and social rights in Article 43 of our Constitution. We are, on a continuous basis, mindful of the constitutional imperatives tied to our work. They inform our intentions as well as our methods. I realize with much humility that to perform these functions, discharge our commitments, and actualize the foregoing obligations, I am vested with the constitutional authority to constitute certain offices and to appoint state and public officers. I am also authorized to mobilize resources and allocate them for expenditure through the budget in order to finance performance of their duties. I do not perform these functions in isolation. I must receive sound technical advice through my cabinet and other agencies, consult other organs of government, and defer to the feedback from commissions and independent offices. The people's representatives in Parliament furnish me with the necessary instruments to act, including to allocate and spend funds. From time to time, the judiciary likewise furnishes me with decisions, opinions, and advisories arising from its exclusive constitutional mandate to interpret the Constitution and all laws. We are cognizant of this robust system of checks and balances, which locks us into a purposive dynamic that permits us to do only right and proper acts and restrain us from pursuing improper and illegitimate objectives and courses of action. The Constitution recognizes the need for an institution to safeguard government against perverse or undesirable effects arising from a distortion of the system of checks and balances through collusion, capture, impunity, or asymmetry. It also recognizes the possibility of abuse, corruption, conflict of interest, and undue influence that can undermine the effectiveness of government and frustrate public interest. The safeguard designed by the Constitution to ensure that the public interest is insulated from failures in the three arms of government is the institution of commissions and independent offices set out in Chapter 15 of the Constitution. The objects for which they are established are explicit. 1, to protect the sovereignty of the people. 2, to ensure the observance by all state organs of democratic values and principles. And 3, to promote constitutionalism. A very strong indicator of their safeguard, or a very strong indicator of their safeguard role, is the constitutional architecture, in the fact that they are only subject to the Constitution, the law, and utterly liberated from any external influence, control, or direction. Likewise, to further highlight this constitutional pride of place, the tenure, terms of service, discipline, and removal are rigorous and entailed by design and are also explicitly expressed in the Constitution itself. To remove a member of a commission or holder of independent office, a petition has to be transmitted to the President after consideration by the National Assembly. The President may suspend the member, but shall appoint a tribunal to investigate the matter and make a binding recommendation to the President. There is no provision for a tribunal to say the President will decide. It is the tribunal that decides whether that person is dismissed or is reinstated. Commissions and independent offices are indispensable to the integrity, efficiency, and effectiveness of government, much in the same way as the internal audit function does to organizations. It generates actionable insights, to orient strategy implementation so as to avoid risks and losses, enhance integrity and accountability, and improve governance and controls. We are committed as an administration to full and consistent compliance with the Constitution as a means of achieving sustainability in our governance agenda and demonstrating that sustainable development demands institutional soundness, which calls for constitutionalism. We are not going to indulge in the escapist fallacies of excusing impunity by citing development, or the cynical binaries pitting prosperity as a trade-off against freedom, or for that matter, compromising democracy and oversight in the name of unity. We will never go back to the handshake conundrum that compromised the oversight role of the opposition over government in the name of unity. And we are going to demonstrate that it is possible to work with the people who did not vote for you as an opposition, holding government to account, but serve all the people of Kenya without distinction of who voted for which side. That is a possibility. And that is a reality we must live with. The integrity of the state lies in constitutionalism. For us to deliver on our commitments and achieve the transformation we envisage, we must recognize that our institutions matter. All institutions matter. As you know, this position is not new. We pledged to take measures to enhance the autonomy and efficacy of independent institutions from the first day of this administration. I can confirm to you that shortly after our inauguration, I executed necessary instruments to appoint judges who had waited inordinately, unnecessarily, for long. I also transferred the police budget, which was unnecessarily, unconstitutionally, and illegally in the office of the president. I transferred that budget to the office of the Inspector General and appointed the IG to be the police service accounting officer. I will also enhance the budgetary allocation to the judiciary as promised, with continuous commitment to sustain it for 5 years in order to accelerate its urgently needed infrastructure development, especially in terms of constructing new court stations in presently unserved or underserved parts of the country. I remember instructing last week our comptroller, who was the accounting officer for the defunct NMS, to transfer the money to the judiciary for them to pay for the small claim courts that have been established in Nairobi as part of my commitment when I took office. We therefore have a good track record in connection with this commitment because we believe in doing the right thing, not because it is politically expedient or otherwise advantageous, but because it is the right thing. And the Constitution is our ultimate benchmark of what is right. We have walked this road for a while now, and the judiciary can bear witness that there has been no attempt whatsoever to capture the judiciary, or any of its constituent organizations and departments, or any of its officers. We want to strengthen our republic by expanding its economy while enriching its institutions. And I mean all institutions, the institutions of parliament, the institution of the judiciary, the institutions under the Chapter 15 institutions of independent offices and independent commissions. Any policy which has the intention or effect of undermining or compromising the autonomy and effective functioning of commissions and independent offices directly assaults the people's sovereignty and through commission or omission sabotages the realization of important rights and freedoms. The existence of the institution of commissions and independent offices, therefore, must force us to stay vigilant at all times and mindful of every real boundary that exists between organizations and agencies of state and government, and by implication of the clear, inevitable, and rigid limits constitutionally imposed on the power and authority we exercise in the public interest. The performance of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission in the last general election and all the circumstances surrounding it are illustrative of this point. A while back, senior politicians teamed up to manage the presidential succession that was due in 2022, with a view to guaranteeing a very specific outcome of the ensuing election. A political mechanism was therefore instituted to facilitate this objective through the capture of autonomous constitutional bodies. In the case of the Iebc, this mechanism resolved to infiltrate the organization by introducing at its highest level 4 sleeper commissioners whose sole task was to lie in wait for the election, then spring into action and take drastic actions to subvert the will of the people. You have heard how the scheme was hatched in Parliament. At the same time, the mechanism constituted a syndicate to execute a series of strategies consisting of bribery, blackmail, extortion, threats, and intimidation of various public officials of the Iebc, attempt their abduction, torture, and assassination, to storm the National Tallying Center and attempt treasonous insurrection, use of violence to cause the alteration of the vote tallying, as well as entice or bribe or force the Iebc chair to announce their favored candidate, or failing this, eliminate him and replace him with a willing accomplice from among the sleepers. The horrifying drama at Bomas and the emergence of breakaway commissioners answering to external instructions represented a dismayingly low point in our democratic history. A policy to subvert the wishes of the people had even been sanctioned at the highest offices of the state. The sovereignty of the people was in jeopardy. Our fundamental constitutional attribute as a free, open, democratic society based on constitutionalism and the rule of law was under severe test. Chapter 7 of the Constitution on the representation of the people was subjected to the most shameful, egregious assault. As a result, the nation's legitimate mechanism for constituting parliament and the executive was under serious threat of chaos and paralysis. This is the magnitude of the atrocity which shamefully desperate criminal spectacle of the Bomas of Kenya represents. The unfortunate events of 2007-2008 are fresh in our minds. By the time we hauled ourselves out of the abyss that was the 2007 post-election crisis, we had lost thousands of lives, millions of livelihoods, We had lost confidence in our institutions. We had lost a lot of hope, and we had lost political sense. The 2022 assault was intended to go much further and subject this country to a much more insurmountable existential predicament. In the midst of this menacing storm of violent criminality, unrelenting corruption, and reckless determination to subvert the Constitution, dismantle institutions, and take our nation apart, a ray of courage and integrity was shown on us by God's grace. The leadership of the Iebc, comprising a minority of the commissioners, the Secretariat, and the staff of the Commission, rallied together and resolved to vindicate the democratic will of the people of Kenya. At great personal cost to themselves, they worked under extremely harrowing conditions to deliver an election which met the constitutional standard and announced results that were beyond reproach. Regrettably, IEBC officers were murdered in the course of duty by actors interested in compromising the elections. Many more were subjected to serious threats, coercion, intimidation, and all forms of pressure by emboldened agents of impunity. We now know that Chairman Wafula Chebukati, who is in this audience, and Commissioners Abdi Yakub Gulie and Boya Molu, as well as the CEO, Hussein Marjan, and their staff, were offered stupendous financial rewards to cooperate with the agents of impunity, but they bravely resisted. I think these good people deserve a clap, a much. We also know that they were subsequently threatened with dire consequences for them and their families if they did not do the system's bidding and overturn the choice of Kenyans. Again, we know that they stood strong and firmly said no. Can we clap for these people? Chairman, stand up, and your two commissioners and the Marjan, please let us clap for those great people. You may take your seats. We also know that there was a direct attempt to abduct Wafula Chebukati and murder him so that the commission would be paralyzed, or a compliant commissioner take over and subvert the people's sovereignty. It was a hard, cold, and lonely time. The threats were dire. The promised rewards very lavish, and the pressure relentless. It matters always that a public officer endeavors to do the right thing. It matters even more that a state officer did not once hesitate, even for the briefest moment, to stand his ground and do the right thing under the circumstances surrounding the announcement of the final presidential results in Bomas. We salute with great admiration the steadfast and the steadfastness, integrity, and leadership through example that Wafula Chebukati provided at the IEBC. It is this uncompromising commitment to his constitutional responsibility that enabled Chebukati lead IEBC in learning effectively from the 2013-2017 elections to deliver an election that met the highest standards, and in fact, that was unstealable. It takes a person who can stare death in the face and nevertheless pursue the right course of action to uphold, protect, and defend our constitutional values and principles, and to enable the legitimacy and to enhance the legitimacy of our institutions, as our brothers in the Iebc did. The Iebc had 3 such people, just 3. Even though they were in the minority, they were enough to do the right thing. How much better our nation would be if all the people serving in our institutions were as committed, as courageous, and as patriotic. In the same vein, the Supreme Court decision to uphold the outcome of the presidential election vindicated Chebukati and his team and the staff. The pen of history will do the rest, for sure. Through Wafula Chebukati, we have seen what integrity looks like at work. We have witnessed him lead an organization in learning from its mistakes and do better each succeeding time. We have seen him refine the art and science of delivering elections that are difficult to overturn. Finally, we have seen him and his team withstand heat and pressure, resist threats and intimidation, reject bribes and enticements in order to stand with the Constitution and with the people of Kenya. How I wish each and every chairman, each and every commissioner, and each and every holder of an independent office can stand in the manner in which Chebukati has led and his team by example. I hope that no other chairman of Iebc or indeed any other institution or commission will have to endure the kind of humiliation, threats, blackmail, bribery, and everything else that Chebukati and his team went through. Chebukati's experience and the fine example, and his fine example brings home in graphic detail the implicit admonition of the Constitution. Commissions and independent officers are the auditors of auditors. They watch over watchmen. The attainment of the promise of this constitutional dispensation depends on their integrity and vigilance. If commissions and independent officers or their leadership or membership go rogue, the people will be on their own as things fall apart. If, on the other hand, commissions and independent officers are steadfast in advancing their constitutional mandate, as the Chebukati team have demonstrated to us, Kenya's institutions will receive the necessary impetus towards realizing the people's aspirations by protecting rights, enhancing freedoms, deepening democracy, and unlocking the huge potential that our country is. As a matter of fact, this is my principal motivation for initiating this engagement between the executive and the commissions and independent institutions. I believe in teamwork. We are all on the same side, even if we play different parts. If every institution rises to their highest potential and operates effectively, there will be opportunity for coordination, collaboration, cooperation, and complementarity, as well as a healthy competition for the benefit of the people of Kenya. And I dare say the same of Bishop Emeritus Eliud Wabukala. Your service at EACC, the stability you have brought, the focus you have instilled, and your team stands out. You leave EACC with your head high up. And again, congratulations. Congratulations, my sister, Dr. Jane Kiringai. You have worked with me. I know your passion and commitment. I remember the incident when I told you, please, when it's time to leave, don't hesitate. And I was saying it in the context of those of us who are politicians, because I was explaining to her how many politicians, they never know when to leave until the people throw them out. So, but I agree with you. Maybe it's time to change stations, not. And the things you have so passionately articulated about our cities and towns, I agree with you. It is on my radar to do. Our housing plan is targeting our cities and towns so that we can eliminate informal settlements and the people who live in squalor. Our plan on solid waste to energy, both in Nairobi and all the other towns, is part of the plan around our cities. Our plan on greening cities and making sure that they are clean, including the commission we have set up on Nairobi rivers, is part of the plan of us sorting out our cities. So we are properly aligned and we share in that vision. And I agree with you. I've had consultations again with all our county governments that their true independence and their true service will be realized the day they realize that they are a government, and a government is run by resources that you raise. You don't wait for resources from another place. And so I'm very happy that we share, having been in that space for a while, and my good deputy will pick up from where we left, and the team that will be coming in Iebc to push it to the next level. I have already given my handing over notes to my deputy on matters to do with Iebc. He knows where we left. So, so again, congratulations to you, and my very best wishes in your next station. Finally, the purpose of this gathering, therefore, is to kickstart sustained deliberation and productive engagement on the most appropriate ways and means of accelerating the full actualization of our constitutional dispensation. We are mandated to reason together from time to time and to collaborate in forging the best way forward for protecting and enhancing democracy, the rule of law, transparency, accountability, and all areas of human rights and culture. There is a role for each one of us, and therefore we must play that role to ensure that more than a decade after its promulgation, we can facilitate the Constitution to unfold its wings so that Wanjiku can finally behold in its full flight. Congratulations to all of you. I look forward to working with you in the various spaces that we interact. As my deputy has said, we will have continuous engagement with your good selves, not for any other reason, but to facilitate your work as you serve the people of Kenya, because your service is critical to the success of us as a country. And therefore, we are partners, we are collaborators, we will work together in forging the way into the future. I want to say congratulations, Eliud, for a wonderful service to Kenya. Congratulations, Jane, for what you have done. Congratulations, Wafula Chebukati, Molu, and Gulie. Our very best wishes in your new assignment as you take the country forward. Hawa watu si tuwapige makofi jameni. Asanteni sana. I have hosted lunch for us. And more so to celebrate the outstanding performance of Iebc.